Welcome to Haunted Horizons, where the darkest legends come to life. In the shadows of history, beyond the veil of forgotten stories, there are horrors that refuse to die, and some that were never meant to be remembered. Tonight, we bring you a tale unlike any other, a ghost that doesn't just haunt places, but haunts memory itself, a name that once spoken takes root in your mind and never lets go. But be warned, this is not just a story. Nathaniel Ward is listening, and if you remember him, he might just remember you. Turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and let the horror begin. There are ghosts that haunt houses, roads, and old graveyards, and then there are ghosts that haunt something far worse, memory itself. Part 1. The Vanishing Name. It started with a man named Nathaniel Ward, or at least that's what the records say. No one remembers meeting him. No family photos exist. No birth certificate. No social security number. And yet, every so often, his name appears in old documents, in scribbled notes, in whispers at the back of someone's mind. A name with no face. A person with no past. And those who try to remember him begin to disappear too. The first case. In 1972, a journalist named Eleanor Price began investigating an abandoned home in Black Hollow, Massachusetts. The townspeople refused to talk about it. They claimed no one had ever lived there. But Eleanor found records, old newspaper clippings mentioning a Nathaniel Ward, a man whose name kept reappearing across decades, a man who should have died 100 years ago. She wrote down everything in her notebook. She never published the story. Days later, her apartment was found abandoned. The only thing left was her notebook, open to a single, unfinished sentence. Nathaniel Ward is... Her name vanished from every record soon after, as if she had never been born. Part 2. The Curse of the Forgotten. Legends say Nathaniel Ward isn't just a ghost. He's something worse, a parasite of memory. He doesn't haunt places, he haunts awareness. The moment you know his name, he becomes part of your thoughts, and the more you think about him, the stronger he becomes. Until one day, he remembers you. A pattern of disappearances. After Eleanor's case, more stories of vanishing people surfaced. Each time, the victims had one thing in common. They had all learned the name Nathaniel Ward. In 1995, a college professor, Dr. Matthew Green, attempted to write a thesis on Nathaniel's existence. He compiled interviews, tracked historical records, and mapped locations where his name had surfaced. 1 week before his research was due to be published, he called his assistant in a panic. "I was looking through my notes, and my handwriting is different. I didn't write some of these pages, but they're in my notebook. Someone else is writing in it." The next day, Dr. Green was gone. His research vanished with him. His office had been cleaned out. No books, no papers, no digital files. His students swore they had never heard of him. His university records were wiped. His home was sold to another family. It was as if he had never existed. Part 3. The Final Warning. A paranormal researcher, Daniel Mercer, uncovered Eleanor's lost notes in 2003. He read them aloud in a recorded interview, exposing Nathaniel Ward's name to thousands of listeners. One by one, those listeners began reporting the same eerie signs. Their reflections changed. Slightly at first, subtle, unfamiliar expressions. Then, something else. Their friends stopped recognizing them. Their handwriting shifted, as if someone else was writing through them. Their names started to disappear. Daniel tried to warn the world. But one night, he sent a final email to his colleague. "I forgot my own name today. I think he's inside my mind." He was never seen again. Part 4. The Last Memory. Some say Nathaniel Ward isn't a person. He never was. He is an empty space where a person should be, a void that feeds on awareness. He waits, unseen, until someone speaks his name, writes it, remembers him, and then he takes their place. If you've read this far, it's too late. You know his name now, and he knows yours. Part 5. The Replacements. Nathaniel Ward is not a ghost. He is a cycle, a presence that feeds, erases, and replaces. And now, he isn't working alone. The return of the vanished. In 2022, a woman named Emma Calloway was found wandering the streets of Black Hollow, confused and terrified. She was barefoot, dressed in tattered clothes, muttering a single phrase, "I don't belong here. I don't belong here." Authorities took her in, searching for her records. There were none. Emma had disappeared 6 years earlier, declared dead, forgotten by everyone, including her own family. And yet, here she was, the horror of the forgotten. A deeper truth was uncovered. Nathaniel Ward doesn't just erase people, he replaces them with something else. The Emma who returned wasn't Emma. Her mannerisms were different. Her speech was outdated. And worst of all, her reflection wasn't hers. "I see him in the mirror. I see him wearing my face." Within weeks, Emma was gone again. This time, there was no record of her ever being found. The spread of the name. A new theory has emerged. Nathaniel Ward is multiplying. Every person who disappears becomes part of him. They are erased, but something takes their place. Something that looks human, but isn't. If you ever feel like someone you know isn't acting like themselves, if their handwriting changes, if their reflection seems slightly off, then maybe, just maybe, they aren't the person you remember. And if you've read this far, he's watching you now. Part 6. The Name That Spreads. The Internet Files. Nathaniel Ward was once contained within old books, forgotten notes, and whispers, but now he has spread into the digital world. His name is being typed, spoken, and shared across thousands of screens. And every time someone reads it, he becomes stronger. In 2024, an anonymous Reddit user posted a thread titled, "Do not search this name," with only one sentence beneath it. "If you read his name, he will read yours." Within minutes, the post was removed. The user's account was deleted. Their IP address was traced to a location that does not exist. The next day, people who had commented on the thread began disappearing, but their social media accounts remained active, posting, typing, whispering. Their messages were always the same. Nathaniel Ward is listening. The digital haunting. A live streamer named Mark Holloway decided to investigate the phenomenon. He spoke Nathaniel's name aloud on his broadcast, daring him to show himself. His viewers watched as his camera glitched, the screen distorted, and his voice started lagging behind his mouth. Then, in perfect synchronization, his lips and voice finally matched up again. But his words weren't his own. "It's too late. I am here now." The screen went black. Mark's stream remained online for 48 hours, just a dark, empty void. Then, one final message appeared in the chat before the account was permanently deleted. "Next, I will speak through you." Mark was never seen again. The final evolution. Nathaniel Ward is no longer bound by paper, ink, or human memory. Now, he exists in the code, in the screens, in the unread messages left in forgotten inboxes. Every time his name is typed, spoken, or searched, he gets closer. And if you see a message you don't remember writing, a whisper in the static, do not respond, because by the time you realize what's happening, it will already be using your voice. Part 7. The Erased Ones. The Vanishing of Black Hollow. In early 2025, a small town in Maine, Black Hollow, disappeared. Not just the people, the entire town. Satellite images showed nothing but forest, where buildings once stood. Every map updated overnight, removing the town as if it had never existed. The only evidence of its presence was a single, corrupted news article recovered from an archived site. The headline read, "Nathaniel Ward returns, a town erased." No author, no date, just that one sentence. A survivor's message. A week later, an emergency operator in Vermont received a call. The voice on the other end was distorted, glitching, as if the signal were barely holding on. "Please, don't forget me. My name is..." Static. Then silence. The call was traced back to Black Hollow, a town that no longer existed, the name that consumes. If Nathaniel Ward was once just a name, a parasite that lived in thoughts, he is no longer contained by human minds. Now, he doesn't just erase people, he erases places, he erases time. Somewhere, deep in the hidden corners of the internet, a group of researchers has been trying to stop him. They claim there is only one way: erase his name before he erases everything else. But here's the real terror. Nathaniel has learned to fight back. The researchers have started vanishing. Their emails delete themselves. Their hard drives wipe clean. Every time someone tries to delete him, he deletes them first. And now, the final message from one of those researchers has surfaced. "If you see this, it means I failed." He's rewriting the world. One person, one city, one memory at a time. And when he finishes, when there's nothing left to erase, he will be the only thing that remains. The message disappeared minutes after being posted. No record of who wrote it. No trace of the website where it was found. The final horror. Nathaniel Ward is no longer waiting to be remembered. He is making sure he is the only thing left to remember. And if you're reading this, it means you're still here. For now, Part 8. The Last Stand. The Survivors Who Remember. In a hidden location, deep underground, the last survivors gather. They are the few who still remember what the world was like before Nathaniel Ward began consuming it. They are scientists, hackers, and those who have lost everything to him. They call themselves the archivists. They believe there is still one way to fight back, but it comes with a cost. The plan to erase him. Nathaniel Ward's power comes from awareness. The more people who know his name, the stronger he becomes. The archivist's solution is simple but terrifying. If Nathaniel Ward is erased from every record, if his name is wiped from every mind, he will cease to exist. But there's one problem he won't let them forget: the final battle. As the archivists work, Nathaniel fights back. Their screens flicker with his name, typed over and over. Their own voices whisper back at them, speaking words they never said. One by one, they start vanishing. Their seats left empty, their names erased, even from the memories of those beside them. The archivist leader, Dr. Evelyn Carter, makes a final desperate move. She broadcasts a message worldwide, a counter-curse, a final act of defiance. Nathaniel Ward is a lie. He was never real. He is a trick of the mind, a sickness in memory. Forget him, and he will disappear. She repeats the words, forcing the world to hear them. The battle isn't against a ghost, it's against belief itself. Forgetting is the only way to win. The collapse. Nathaniel screams. His presence distorts. Cities he had erased begin to reappear. People lost to him blink back into existence. For the first time, Nathaniel Ward is truly afraid. His form begins unraveling. The shadows he once controlled slip away, and then he is gone. Silence, the aftermath. The world continues, as if nothing had ever been wrong. But those who fought him remember. They do not speak his name. They do not write about him. They do not allow his story to spread again. And yet, in the forgotten corners of the internet, in old books, left to gather dust, in whispers beneath the wind, something lingers. Because nothing is ever truly forgotten. Not forever.